Okay, sounds good. Okay. We are ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay, it is 5:32, and this is the Monday, April 19th regular meeting of the Architecture Advisory Committee of the City of Palm Springs. Mr. Newell, please take roll call.
Member Thompson is excused. Member Walsh,
Here.
Member Payline,
Here.
Member McCoy,
Here.
Member Lockyer,
Here.
Member Dozy,
Here.
Vice Chair Rotman.
Here.
And Chair Jakeway.
Here,
All members present.
thank you. May we have a staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the agenda was published on Thursday, April 15th. So our meeting has been published in accordance with state law.
Thank you. Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda? Seeing none, do we have a move to accept the agenda?
Move to accept.
Thank you, John.
Second.
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 Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. This is a public meeting and audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that is within this committee's purview. Comments on an item appearing on today's agenda are made at the time that item is presented. Mr. Newell, do we have anybody in the waiting room to speak on to the committee in general?
We have not received any requests to speak for this portion of the agenda, but if there is anyone on the call who would like to provide general public comments, they may do so now by turning on their microphone. Doesn't appear we have anyone who wants to speak at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. We do not have minutes to review from the last meeting, so we're going to proceed right away to unfinished business. Item number 2, Chiswick on behalf of OC Coast Inc. for a minor architectural application to alter the exterior of an existing cannabis facility height end located at 3395 North Indian Canyon Drive. Do we have a staff report?
Yes. Thank you. Good evening. As introduced, this is a proposed exterior alterations to cannabis facility heightened at 3395 North Indian Canyon Drive. The project site is located at the northwest corner of West San Rafael Drive and North Indian Canyon Drive. The facility is 2,505 square feet in area, and the business is a cannabis lounge. Again, the applicant is proposing to repaint exterior building walls and install outdoor lighting fixtures. And this project was reviewed by the AAC on October 19th, 2020. At the October 19th AAC meeting, the AAC provided some comments regarding the initial proposal, which included the light fixtures, concerns regarding light fixtures, treatment of minor architectural elements, landscaping, and signage. This table, which was included in the staff report, summarizes what the AAC comments were and what kind of changes have been proposed by the applicant. As you see here, the applicant has addressed all comments that were provided by the AAC. With regards to the comments about the landscape, the business is not the property owner. However, the issue about the site's landscape has been forwarded to Code and Compliance Division, and the property owner will be working to address this. And then also, the applicant has not submitted a permanent sign application as of today. As you may recall, these are the paint colors that applicant previously proposed, and no changes to the colors. And the light fixtures has been changed from the previously proposed battery-powered light fixtures to hot-wired, actually shielded light fixtures as shown here. These site photographs were recently taken by staff. And as you notice, since the October 19th meeting, these two horizontal wooden accents have been installed. And then also staff noticed a floodlight on the canopy, which is intended to illuminate the temporary sign on the building elevation. Staff finds that the two horizontal wooden accents have been installed on the primary and the south elevation of the building since the last AAC review, and the floodlight on the south elevation does not meet outdoor lighting standards. These are the issues that the staff has noticed. And based on the revised plan, the applicant is addressing all the comments provided by the AAC on October 19th. And those issues are relatively minor. Floodlight can be removed, and so as the wood accents on the primary elevation of the building. Based on this, the staff recommends AAC recommend approval of the proposed project to the City Council subject to the conditions below. Remove any unpermitted architectural elements such as light fixtures, floodlight, and two horizontal wooden accents to be removed within 14 days of the approval of the application by the City Council. And then also the applicant to obtain a building permit for the installation of a hardwired new lighting fixtures and the street and parking lot facing windows and door in the reception area to be not opaque in accordance with the city's recent policy pertaining to the treatment of a cannabis facility glazing area. This concludes the staff presentation, and applicant is here in the audience if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Noriko. Does anybody on the committee have questions for staff?
I have one quick one.
Yeah, Robert.
Noriko, is there, what's the city requirement for bike racks at commercial businesses?
With regards to the bike racks may be required by the city for projects for which applications are required. However, it's not mandatory. It just says the zoning code states may be required. So for reviewing this particular application, staff did not impose the requirement of a bike rack.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
I have a question,
Yes,
Rico.
Tom.
Will they, I know we had discussed some opportunities to do some landscaping, both in the parking lot and adjacent to the building. Is that still their intent to landscape those areas?
I spoke to the property owner. Again, the applicant is not the property owner. So this landscape maintenance issue is actually on the property owner, not the applicant, since the applicant is a tenant. However, the code compliance division has issued a courtesy letter for this property, and the property owner is required to either install the landscape as previously approved, or if they are going to make any changes, the property owner will have to submit a minor architectural review application for the landscape. However, the city has taken action for that.
Okay. Yet, and this applicant will still be able to operate even though the owner of the building has not yet concluded with those improvements?
Yes, the business is an operating cannabis facility. They have the city regulatory permit, so they are to operate the business. The landscape issue is a little bit separate because that relates to property maintenance.
Okay.
Yes, so it's a little bit different in terms of the purview of this particular application.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Noriko, does the city have any regulations for temporary signs? These two signs have been up 6 months. Well, we reviewed it 6 months ago and they were up. I don't know when they went up before that. But is there a restriction on how long a temporary consign can go up, or does the staff have to approve colors or sizes or any regulations on temporary signs?
Yes, these temporary signs were administratively approved by staff. The zoning code section about a temporary sign does not specify the time frame. However, the temporary signage is something that's usually be removed within 60 days. And I understand that this banner's been there for quite some time, so the staff will definitely investigate that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of staff? Enrique, you said that the applicant is here. Would you please give us your name and give us some explanation of your project and the revisions you've made since we saw you last in October?
Hi, good evening. This is Andy Cover. I'm the attorney for the business. Basically, we have done everything that you've asked. We gave specs on new lights that have the proper Kelvin and are shielded the way you want it to. We've proposed to paint the roll-up doors and the accents in the colors that are already there, hardwiring all of the lights the way that you wanted. So I think that we've addressed everything. The landscape is something that the landlord is going to be dealing with as opposed to the tenant. So, and as far as these two wooden strips that are up there, I have been asking around as to where they came from, and I haven't actually gotten an answer, and nobody seems to know, but I have discussed, that they need to take them down, but we should wait until, you guys approve that, so we're not back in here for taking down what shouldn't have been up in the first place.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, I do.
John McCoy.
So you mentioned you will be hardwiring these light fixtures.
Yes.
What is the method of getting power to them? Are you going inside the walls? Or are you putting pipes on the exterior?
Oh, that I don't know. I will leave that up to the professionals who are going to do it as to what's best. But if you have recommendations, I'm happy to pass them along.
Yes, visually, I don't think we really want to see pipes mounted to the building for the feed. And I think neighbors and things would prefer to have the cleaner look. What are the hours of operation?
It's 9 to 9.
Okay. These light fixtures are certainly a much better choice. Thank you for doing that. What I'd like to put out there is you've got two light fixtures flanking the door and a couple on that same wall that are further to the west that I presume are, close to a door in giving you access illumination. The other four on the corner appear to be generally to draw attention to the shop. They shine down on top of a roll-up security mechanism. And so what I'd like to suggest is that the four fixtures on the corner only go on during hours of operation, and the other ones can stay on for extended periods for security.
Okay, and I will mention that those in our revised proposal, there won't be 4 lights up there anymore. There's a reduction in the number of lights overall from 10 to 6, I believe. So there will only be 2 lights above that window. And
Right,
then
but
2
you go
lights on
around the
other
corner
side.
and there's 2 more. So
Right.
those 4 just on the corner are shining above the windows. It's not an optimum placement for lighting, but I understand you're trying to draw attention and get some security and safety out there.
Okay, understood.
That's all.
Any other questions from committee? I have a question. Unfortunately, you can't see it in any of these photographs, but when I was out at the site, the existing parking lot along San Rafael, there's a curb, a concrete curb that separates the parking stall from a slight sloping landscaped area that goes down to the sidewalk. That curb stops about 20 feet short of the actual driveway. So anybody parked in the last 2 parking stalls closest to the driveway, they could roll right off the parking lot down that embankment and onto the curb. There's no wheel stops, there's no nothing. What's your intention there to improve that situation?
As far as I know, this hasn't been brought up before. I wasn't aware that it was a situation. The parking lot was entirely ripped up and redone last year, as was the sidewalk on Indian Canyon. But I don't believe that anyone ever raised the issue of the curb on the San Rafael side.
Okay. And one of the staff recommendations with the new city council direction is that the windows not be opaque that are looking into the reception area. What is the intention now for that glazing?
That's going to be removed. I mean, as we discussed last time, right, there's a mural or a painting glazing on the inside that's going to be removed, and the tinting that's on the front doors will be removed.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee of the applicant? Okay, thank you, Mr. Kaver.
Thank you very much.
Committee members, comments, questions? Sean?
Yeah, I might have some. The landscaping looks like on the far east side, you know, it's all very low planting. It looks kind of hodgepodgey and sporadic out on that east island of the parking area, which is kind of along the, it looks like where the sidewalk terminates into that planter. So I'm not even quite sure if that's, I guess that's not a sidewalk. In other words, there's no need to continue a sidewalk up the side of this building through that planter. And then if you look at kind of a street view of this building further north, trying to get to my point here, just bear with me. Basically wondering if we can extend landscaping out to that eastern island, but then at the same time, I'm wondering, are these plans complete with this sidewalk required? Because there's a street intersection behind this building to the north, and then further north, the next building up the street appears to have a concrete sidewalk, and that handicap curb depressions there at the intersection, where this building doesn't look that way, or at least the sidewalk appears to be asphalt concrete. And then that sidewalk kind of terminates at that island I was asking about, where I was pointing out the hodgepodge of plant material in that island. And so I see 3 trees kind of in just that center island that make some attempt to shade the parking. I think I was wondering if we could extend another tree further east into that island, make all the plant material larger. It's all 5 gallon in a pretty windy zone of the city, and I have my doubts on whether it will survive or not. Also wondering, as you were pointing out, the southern edge of that paved area, is there a way to get some landscaping buffer between the asphalt of the street and the asphalt of the driveway? And as I look at the street view, I wonder that same thing about the west side of the driveway entrance from the south, from San Rafael. There appears to be a curb cut which allows the asphalt to enter into the property. And then left of that, there's a power pole, not shown on the plans, a down guy. Looking from the street view, there's additional parking on the west side of the property there. I'm just wondering if there's potential to get more landscaping to kind of screen this building and parking area. Because I think in the foreground, as you approach this intersection, if you're heading north on North Palm Canyon, and you stop at that light and you look to your left, it's really the foreground before these trees that also could use some maybe shading for the parking area, and frankly, just some landscaping to kind of screen what appears to be a not so attractive black asphalt mass. a neighbor pointed out, wrote in a letter that I think David circulated earlier today, that it mentioned something about the developments going in at the other three intersections, and how the improved intersection here is really going to beautify this intersection. And yet I still wonder about this building, if it's going to be kind of an eyesore. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Sean.
Mm.
Noriko, question of staff. I totally agree with Sean's comments. However, in this review, do we have any say-so over the landscaping? Or is that just a code enforcement issue from the plan that was approved in 2014?
Yes, right now it is more related to property maintenance issue rather than the design issues. As you see in the AAC packet, and Chair Jackway mentioned, the site's landscape was approved by staff in 2014. So unless the property owner is making any changes to the design of a landscape design, the issue remains as a property maintenance issue rather than a design issue.
What about the issue that Sean mentioned of the sidewalk that's not continuous, so that somebody coming from the corner of San Rafael and Palm Canyon would actually have to get out and walk in the street to get up to the sidewalk that's on the other side of the building? Does engineering, or is there some other city department that can look at enforcement of that issue?
I will let engineering engineering division staff respond to your question. Rick,
Yeah, I'm here. Chair Jake Wade.
Rick.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good, how are you?
The sidewalk, about a year ago, we had required that the handicap ramp on the intersection to the north of this building, which is actually considered San Rafael Place, that they actually rebuild that handicap ramp that's there. It's actually a type C ramp. It's pretty hard to see from a Google Earth view. And then there's a sidewalk that continues along the side of the building, another type C ramp that enters the pedestrians across the driveway on Indian. And then it's new sidewalk all the way around to the other driveway. So there is continuous sidewalk all the way through with modified ramps.
So I'm guessing that's not shown on this drawing because this drawing was done in 2014 before the most recent improvements.
Correct. Yeah, all the improvements have been completed out there. They actually did quite a bit of work. They had to move the curb back several feet. We had to acquire easements along the side of the building for the sidewalks. And then as the sidewalks continue west along San Rafael to their new driveway, there's also a ramp there. And when the construction was occurring, the new elevation of the new top of curb, the new sidewalk, in relation to the existing parking, it ended up being a little bit of an elevation difference. And we had pointed out at the time to the developer's contractor on site that they potentially might have end up with a problem of some of the dirt fluffing off onto the sidewalk, and that they should probably put in some concreted cobble in there. And then also some type of a barrier curb to keep the cars from rolling off of the parking lot into that dirt area along San Rafael. So we had brought that to their attention at that time, but I don't think that they were involved in that portion of the project. I'm not exactly sure, but we did bring that up while the street improvements were being constructed.
So I don't think that that has been done, especially the barrier curve you just mentioned. Who would be responsible for approaching the owner and saying that it needs to be completed?
I think this might end up being, I'm not sure. This might be a combination of code enforcement and also maybe something that you guys could impose at your level telling them that those are a couple of things they need to address as a result of the improvements that they had to do. This wasn't an existing condition, and as a result of the new improvements, it created this condition. So I think that you guys would probably be able to make comments. I would have to refer that back to David to see if you're able to do that.
Thank you, Rick. Does anybody else on the committee have questions for the engineering staff? Thank you, Rick.
Yep.
Questions in general or comments from the committee?
I have a comment.
Tom Dosey.
Chairman, I know that we did discuss at the last meeting, I'm pretty certain that about the curb and that the parking lot be, properly defined as we would see any parking lot with two, well-defined entries, landscape border for screening of cars, and then hopefully the sidewalk be continued so that the adjacent sidewalk can connect to the corner. So I think it's an important issue. It's not that hard. It should not be any different than any other project we review in the city.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Robert?
Yeah, one thing is the photographs versus what's in the submitted drawings. I'd like to make a request that the light fixtures, the new light fixtures, all be at the same level. Because in the drawings, they show the ones by the door higher than the ones over the windows. And I think it would look better if they could establish one elevation for all the light fixtures. The other thing is, I really, except for them being 2x4s, I actually like the added detail of the two boards. And I don't know if it's something that they want to make more permanent and plaster over it or whatever, but I actually think it helps that entry elevation. So just my thoughts.
Thank you. Any other comments? Does somebody want to make a motion? Are we at that point now?
Can we just talk about those boards? Can I comment on,
Yes, please.
Robert, what you were saying about that? I agree some enhancement there. The horizontal lines are a gesture that I agree that the concept would be an enhancement, Robert, but it almost looks like lath that was put up to accept another material over top of it. Like I would do, if I wanted to create a rain screen wall type of thing, or these furring strips to hang something else on it, like a steel facade or something like that, or wood siding pulled away from the existing stucco. It just looks like construction material that some bandit in the middle of the night evidently came by and found the building, and no one knows how it got there. And then they got bored and decided to give up the whole process and didn't continue it, further down the wall or up above or something. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, I would agree. And considering the applicant doesn't know anything about it, but I actually think some gesture would actually help that entry elevation. So. And, we could leave it up to staff to work with them to come up with a more permanent solution and a design that is appropriate. Or we could ask if they want to make that change, we ask that they come back.
Yeah, I would say if they're properly finished and painted one of the accent color, they could work. But as is, they do feel like a temporary addition, waiting for something else to happen.
Yeah, I agree with Sean. They look like backing that's put there for something to be applied to in the future. But I also agree with Robert that maybe they've opened a new opportunity that shows that something there would be a great, simply done addition to the building to bring up the architecture a bit. Okay, is Is there a motion? The items that we've talked about are on the lighting, that the light fixtures be at the same level and that there be no exposed conduit to supply the power to those fixtures. That the two wooden exposed boards be addressed as to, are they truly a design element, or what is the intent of that? That the barrier curb at the parking lot, especially near the San Rafael driveway approach, be addressed. Were there any other?
Yeah, well, the only question I have is that last one, is that in our purview for this approval? Or is that something that the landlord would have to address separately?
David, can we put that as part of our motion without being 100% sure if that's something that is within our review, but we're making people at the city aware that we think it's a problem?
Yeah, certainly. We, what we look for in our review of these applications is compliance with the architectural review standards. One of those requirements is relative to site layout and distinguishing between vehicular and pedestrian areas. So I think under the findings that you're charged with reviewing, you can make a recommendation relative to that.
Thank you.
Tom, can we add the hours of operation for the 4 fixtures on the corner?
Yes. That they only be functioning during the hours that the business is opened. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
And Tom, you captured the addition of some landscape along the southern side of the parking lot?
That, I think we should put that in the motion, and staff can determine that that is within our purview based on what David just mentioned about the interaction between the building and the site around it.
Okay.
Okay, is that a motion?
Sounded like one.
Yeah,
Okay, so that will be my motion.
I'll second.
Seconded by, was that Sean?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So we're now going to item number 3, Studio AR&D Architects on behalf of Green Room Palm Springs LLC.
Tom, can I jump in for a moment?
Yeah, sure.
I'd like to abstain from this one since I'm deeply involved.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So David will note that Sean has abstained or recused himself. Studio AR&D Architects on behalf of Green Room Palm Springs LLC for minor architectural review to alter the exterior of an existing commercial building and install a new sign for a new cannabis dispensary facility, Emerald and Sage, at 2155 North Palm Canyon Drive. Could we have a staff report, please?
Okay, so this is another proposed commercial extra alterations for cannabis facility. This one is actually for a proposed cannabis dispensary facility at 2155 North Palm Canyon Drive. The project site is located on the west side of North Palm Canyon Drive, and the site consists of 2 separate parcels. This project site is outlined here, but it actually contains 2 separate parcels. And the image on the right shows the existing condition of the commercial building. The building is currently unoccupied, and the applicant is proposing exterior alterations to this building to accommodate a new cannabis facility for the Emerald and Sage. The site is currently developed with an existing commercial building, and applicant is proposing to install new landscaping and a new parking lot. This is a proposed design that's submitted by the applicant. As a part of this project, applicant is proposing to close an existing driveway approach on North Palm Canyon Drive and create a new one. This proposed site circulation shows that the one-way access will be provided on the North Palm Canyon, and then the exit will be provided at the rear of the property. So this is a site plan that was included in the packet. Since the report was completed, the applicant has made minor changes, which I will go in a second. But this is the overall site plan that the applicant is proposing. In addition to the exterior alteration, the applicant is proposing a 374 square foot addition in a part of the building which faces the parking lot, and just to show the location of it. These are the proposed materials for the new exterior of the building. The applicant is proposing the use of Garapa wood buttons for the treatment of the building elevations, as well as a steel picket fence and natural rust patina, stucco, glazing, and so forth. This is the material sample submitted by the applicant. These are the existing photos, the photos of the existing site. As I mentioned, the building is currently unoccupied, and it just shows some signs of, I guess, a lack of maintenance per se. So what they're proposing today actually will improve the site conditions significantly. These are the renderings submitted by the applicant. As you can see, the existing photos, the site photos, and then also the proposed rendering. The applicant is retaining the character defining features of the building, such as this projecting canopy, and the overall building height and massing uniformity will be retained. Again, the exterior of the building, instead of the existing stucco and the stone siding, it will be Garapa wood buttons. And then also the applicant is proposing to replace the existing arched windows with more expensive horizontal grazing, which extends from the primary elevation to the parking lot facing elevation. And then also the canopy that projects into the parking lot facing elevation will be removed, and then the corner of the building will be rounded to create an organic appearance. And this is the parking lot facing elevation of the building. Applicants proposing to install desert tolerant plant materials to complement the simplicity of the building, as you can see here. And this is a proposed parking lot design. The project is proposing to create a private outdoor gathering space, which will be defined by the steel picket fence, as you see here in the image below. In addition to the exterior alterations, the applicant is proposing to install a new monument sign for the business, and the proposed sign conforms to the applicable development standards or sign, the sign ordinance regulations for commercial property. And in addition to the signage, the applicant is proposing to install motifs on the building elevation. This is just to show the location of what the proposed design is. Based on the submitted materials, outdoor lighting plan does not meet the specifications. There was no rooftop mechanical equipment information, and there's some parking lot design issues, and including the installation of 2 gates, one of which is not satisfactory compliance with engineering design requirements. And then also the project is proposing opaque window treatment. And the design of the proposed motifs resembles a business logo, which needs to be reviewed as a sign. The overall project will improve the site existing conditions, and the unique architectural designs are appropriate for the location. And the zoning issues are very minor, and it will not really alter the nature of the project. And the sign meets the zoning regulations. And the only other finding is that the proposed motif would not meet the sign ordinance if they were to be reviewed as a signage. So based on the submitted materials, staff is recommending that the ASC approve the proposed monument sign as submitted. And then also, as for the exterior alterations, staff is recommending that that the ASC recommend the approval of the proposed project to the city council, subject to the conditions below. The outdoor lighting, rooftop mechanical equipment, and new landscape shall conform to the applicable zoning and the municipal code regulations. And the proposed parking lot design, including the gates, shall meet the zoning code and engineering requirements. Since the preparation of this staff report, the applicant has been notified of certain issues pertaining to the parking lot design, and the applicant has agreed to remove the proposed gate for the parking area, and then also utilize the area that's noted as employee parking area for employee bicycle parking area instead. And the applicant has also agreed not to make the glazing area opaque. And finally, the staff is recommending a condition that the applicant omit the outline of a leaf from the proposed motif design to keep the design abstract so that it will be treated as architectural design rather than signage. And the staff also finds that other than the curbing of the wood button building walls, the motif design, which involves any material to be installed affixed to the building walls, shall be considered signage and reviewed by a sign permit application in accordance with the zoning code. The applicant is here today, and this concludes staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Noriko. Does anybody on the committee have questions for the staff?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple.
Yeah.
Noriko, the staff report mentions the encroachment of, it's a little over 5 feet, 5.5 feet over the sidewalk. Does that exist by benefit of an encroachment permit?
Yes, so the public right of way that's adjacent to the site is actually under the jurisdiction of the Caltrans, not the city. So the existing canopy is legal non-conforming, and applicant is not making really changes, or I should say intensify the non-conformity of the building. If, however, the proposed project, as you see, there's a landscape area that project beyond the property line, and any improvement work to the canopy will require Caltrans review and approval.
It's interesting just because, I mean, so I assume at some point in time, somebody got a permit for this that hangs over the sidewalk, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so if you keep it and wrap it in some new material, that's no problem?
Correct. They are not really making any changes to the canopy design. They are just changing the exterior of it. So the projection will not be increased, or there's no extension of the canopy or any changes to the building height. So everything is supposed to remain the same, except the rounding of the corner, which will not really intensify the nonconformity.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
I have some.
I heard the voice, but I didn't see who it was.
Robert.
Robert.
Yeah, so on the parking being non-conforming, would you just clarify, is it just because it's not 90-degree parking and it's angled parking that it's non-conforming?
No, well, this is up till today. The applicant has agreed to remove the gate, but as you see here on the site plan, the applicant is proposing a gate along the rear property line right over here. So this does not meet the engineering requirement. And then also this parking stall right here, the zoning code requires the end parking space to be at least 10 feet from the property line. So particular space does not meet the requirement. However, the applicant has agreed to not utilize this parking space. So once everything is reviewed, it's going to be in conformance with the applicable development standards.
Okay. I couldn't find where the second leaf motif was. That was on the building. I know where the one is on Palm Canyon, but I couldn't see in the drawings where the second one was.
Okay,
Robert, it's on that little curving wall where the front door is.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then let me see here. So in the staff report, it says that the monument sign, that it's part of it is non-illuminated. The letters were non-illuminated, but when I looked at the detail, it seems like both the logo and the name of the business is illuminated. Is that different, or is that? Can you clarify that?
Sure. In reviewing it, it was staff's understanding that only the lettering portion will be illuminated, meaning it's going to be a reverse halo effect.
Uh-huh.
However, I'm not omitting the possibility that maybe I misunderstood the design of it. And the applicant is here today, so he can definitely confirm that the actual construction of it. Oh, I'm sorry. You are correct, actually, Vice Chair Rotman. There was my oversight. It shows that the logo will be illuminated as well.
Okay. And then as part of our review, we are reviewing the monument sign. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. And then actually the AAC is the approval body for the proposed signage. So it will not going to the city council for review.
Okay, and so has the applicant submitted the type of marble that's being proposed for the monument sign?
Not the material sample, no.
Okay. I think that covers my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff? Noriko, I get the concept that you're saying the two circles that are cut into the wood, it's a fine line between a sign or a piece of art, I guess, or a sculpture, as they call it in the drawings. Who will make that final decision as to if it's too close to being a sign versus being a piece of art?
I think, well, that's actually a difficult question, because if we're going to call this a signage, the AAC is the final decision-making body for signage. If it's not, then it's going to be city council.
Let me ask a further question. Is it easier if we say that it's signage and we approve 2 additional signs for this project? Do we have that ability to approve 2 wall-mounted signs in addition to the monument sign?
Chair Jakeway, I would just jump in here. The 2 additional signs, if they are recommended for approval as they're shown, they do not conform to the sign ordinance standards in terms of area and number. So the authority, we don't have authority to approve that unless a sign variance is submitted.
Okay, thank you. It's a gray area. I mean, I think they're very unique and interesting on the building, and hopefully the applicant can come up with some sort of graphic within there that it's different enough from the logo that'll still give them the opportunity to put these on the building.
Mr. Chairman, could I get sort of a clarification on this? So today we are just looking at and evaluating the monument sign, correct?
Well, and all the architectural changes to the building.
Understood, but
Yeah,
not,
for signage, just the monument sign.
got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any questions of staff? Okay, we know the applicant is here. Could you give us your name and tell us what we need to know about your project.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Nick LaFaro here for Studio ARD Architects. We're pretty excited about this project. We think it's some great architectural improvements to a currently dilapidated building that's located at the beginning of town. We believe that these improvements to the exterior facade and site of this caliber will enhance the design aesthetic of North Palm Canyon Drive, especially as you're entering town. So, like Noriko said, it's kind of characterized by this prominent canopy eave that does extend beyond the property line. We're not proposing to add to that non-conforming eave, but we are proposing to keep and alter, adding contemporary materials and form. The existing facade is very hard with sharp corners. It's got hard stone, heavy stucco. So we really want to soften this aesthetic through curves and materials, using soft and warm materials. So the main material that we're proposing is a board and batten. We chose Garapa wood for its durability in the desert and its elegance. We're going to be staining and sealing it to a golden color. We like using this wood also for the variation that we're going to see from piece to piece. They'll also be spaced at 2 inches on center on top of marine grade plywood that will be painted black. And that's a color theme that we're kind of driving throughout this project, is this kind of gold, warm color over a black background. You see it on our exterior, you see it on our logo, and you see it on our monument sign. To answer Robert's question earlier, is we're looking at using a 3/4 inch black granite. It'll maintain its color in the desert pretty well. And we're looking at like a leather texture for that. Other materials, steel picket fencing that we're gonna let naturally rust to match and complement the Garapa. We are creating this long, narrow window that we're gonna be using a bronze colored tempered glass for. And we originally wanted to go opaque or reflective, but now we're gonna be doing a semi-opaque. Other materials are integral stucco. That'll be like a white color. We're using sand finished concrete, 3/8 gravel, desert select boulders. And yeah, this is, it's being converted into a cannabis dispensary that'll be operated 12 hours per day, 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's a dispensary not involved in production of manufacturing of cannabis products, so very little odor coming from this. And so the company is Emerald and Sage. They're really trying to sell health and wellness. So that's at a luxury kind of high-end experience. So we designed a building that we thought would make you smile and feel invited. That also led to the design of the leaf with the halo around it, and just the overall theme of this. And we're pretty happy with what we're presenting here.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions from the committee for the applicant?
I have one question for Nick.
Yeah.
I think you guys have done a great job. I love the transition area from the parking lot to the entrance, the landscape palette and your whole design concept. I think the only concern I have is with the orientation of the front door and the direction of the prevailing winds out there. And if at some point it could create a problem, when they go to open that door and the wind comes across. So I'm just raising it as an issue that it could be something.
It's interesting.
Where it becomes like a funnel almost. And I started looking at the plan to see if there was some kind of baffle walls or something that could become part of the site landscape. But I just wanted to raise that point. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can revisit the landscape design, maybe moving that olive tree a little bit closer to help block the prevailing wind, still keeping it away from the building. But definitely use the landscape to buffer those winds.
Thank you.
Nick, I have a couple of questions. You don't show any walkway to get from the sidewalk to the front door. And as more of these boutique hotels are being developed up in this neighborhood and people on their bikes and stuff, I think it would be nice and friendlier if people could get from the sidewalk to the front door without having to walk through the parking lot. And that's a comment.
I agree.
Also, you show this uninterrupted band of glass, but I gotta think you're gonna have some vertical metal mullions in there, or are you intending that that would be a butt joined continuous glazed surface?
That's what we're intending for. So we really want to avoid having mullions. We haven't gone through Title 24 yet, so we don't know if they're gonna require insulated glazing. Of course, if they do, we can't make that curved portion out of insulated glazing. So we would at least have some sort of mullion at a transition point there. But our intent is to use 1/2-inch tempered glass and to have these butt joints with silicone in between the glazing where needed.
Believe it or not, Fleetwood has done dual paned curved glazing for me in sliding glass doors. So you might find something that you can do. Third question, and this is probably a big one. In your design concepts, did you ever consider taking the 6-foot height of that canopy and shortening it? Chop a foot or two off the top of it, so it's a little lower than the wall at the left side of the building, but it's not so heavy hanging over that window. I noticed that when you're up on the roof, it looks like there's a 3 to 4 foot high parapet above the existing roof. And I would think that any existing mechanical equipment that could be held far enough back from that parapet, if it was cut shorter, that new screening on mechanical equipment would make it invisible, but it would give a little more variation to the front facade.
Interesting. We had not explored that yet. We did like the height of it because we knew that we were going to need to get dog houses and other mechanical equipment up there, roof penetrations that we wanted to screen. So your suggestion would be or recommendation is to lower it by 12 inches, not to bring it closer towards the building, but the overall height.
Correct. Yeah. Because you are cutting off the end of it where you've got that curve and it doesn't continue further along the side. So you're already taking away the bulk of it somewhat. Mm-hmm. And so I think if the height were reduced, it might just make it a little more of an interesting element that you've got some up and down to the overall heights. Keep the parapet as high as it is on the very left side there, which is now where all the stone is. Just a comment for you to think about. And then on the pictures we're seeing on the bottom left picture, there's a white horizontal band along the back side of the building that you see from the parking lot. And it looks like it might be a gutter or a roof drain. Do you know what that is?
I do not know what that is. I think it might have been an exterior gutter, but what we're proposing to do is to have all roof drains within the framing of our building. So redoing, not redoing the parapet, but we're taking off the stucco, we're exposing the framing from the inside and outside, and we're going to get those downspouts inside of the walls.
Thank you.
So whatever that horizontal white stripe is, that's coming off.
Okay. Staff, committee, any other questions for the applicant?
I have some.
Robert.
Yeah. Is there any lighting proposed for the existing or proposed in the canopy?
No.
No. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the use of the outdoor patio, the private patio?
Yeah. So one of the owners, one of the partners on this is a musician, and they host a lot of podcasts. So they're going to be bringing in people like Snoop Dogg coming in and having a podcast. So they wanted also this area outside to be able to host small gatherings. It's also going to act as a outdoor break room for the staff as well.
Do you anticipate it being a smoking lounge, an outdoor smoking lounge at all?
Cigarettes, that's it.
Cigarettes, okay. So there is a wall in the plans drawn in front of where the meters are in the back. What is that? Is it fencing or is it actually a wall? Because it was unclear.
So it's gonna be like a wood screen, some sort of fencing. We haven't designed that yet, but the intent is to be 6 feet high to help screen that mechanical or the gas meter and the electric meter that are back there.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then I think, let me just see if that's the last question I have is just the choice of the white stucco on the rear part of the building in contrast with the front part with the board and batten over a black plywood. It seems like it might be a really stark contrast. And I'm just wondering what was your thinking behind that choice?
The thinking for selecting a
white stucco.
You know, the ceiling of this canopy that's protruding over the sidewalk, we were also going to go with a white stucco for that. We didn't want to go dark again. We wanted to just kind of have this wood up a bit against another contrasting element. So the white integral stucco felt like the right choice. And we did try some different colors. We tried gray, we tried some brown when we were doing renderings, and it just, it didn't complement the wood. It kind of diluted it a bit. We found the white to just help contrast and make this wood element sing a little bit more.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other committee member questions for the applicant? Nick, thank you very much. It's a great project.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I believe our engineer, Rick Manharas, has a comment about the right-of-way relative to Caltrans and the overhang.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to mention that any of the work along Palm Canyon in the right-of-way, being the new driveway approach and removing the old driveway approach, as well as any airspace work that's done in the public right-of-way along Palm Canyon, which, you know, if they had to set up scaffolding and that sort of thing to do any kind of work on that overhang that's actually overhanging into the airspace, even if they did have a previous agreement, an encroachment agreement with Caltrans for that, they would still need to have that reviewed and that work approved by Caltrans to do that work. We do not have any jurisdiction over that right of way. And that does include airspace. We have the same issue with buildings downtown in the part of Palm Canyon that is not Caltrans, where we actually issue permits and encroachment agreements and licenses over signs and things from buildings that actually protrude out into the airspace, where they actually have to go through city approval. So I would imagine that Caltrans would not be any different.
Thank you, Rick, for that background.
Yep.
Any questions from the committee? Further questions? Well, we've finished our questions of the applicant, so let's have our discussion. Comments, reactions?
Nice project.
Well, I'll go.
Robert?
Yeah, I agree. It's a great project, a huge improvement on the building, the existing building. Tom, I couldn't agree more with you about your comment of providing a pedestrian access from the sidewalk to the entry. Likewise, I think they should consider some place for some bike racks, because As you mentioned, there are a lot more pedestrians and bike riders, and I think they should accommodate the public that way. I don't, other than that, I don't have much more to say other than I think it's really a great project. As far as going through the staff issues, I'm assuming that, because I think we need to address those. I'm assuming the applicant can work with the staff on the light standards, the rooftop equipment, which I think we already have an adequate parapet at 3 to 4 feet, but they should know where the equipment is located and that it's properly screened. Let's see, proposed gate. The issues with the gates and the parking seem like it's being addressed. And the storefront window, and then the whole thing with in the leaf motif, if it's just a question of likes or dislike, I like it. So, whether it's a sign or it's art, I think it's actually a nice addition to the building. So.
Thank you, Robert. Does anybody have any additional comments or questions, or did Robert just make a motion? Or does he want to refine that?
De facto.
If I agree, I think I like the motif in the.
Yeah, it's something unique and different.
Verticals.
Yeah. Any other comments? Robert, do you want to refine your recent comments into a motion?
Yeah, sure. I move to approve with the following conditions. The applicant work with staff on adjusting the light standards, rooftop equipment screening, landscaping, the gate and parking. And I'd like to add the conditions that there be a pedestrian connection between the sidewalk along Palm Canyon and the entrance to the project, as well as some place for bike parking.
Do we have a second?
Second.
John McCoy seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Sean and group did a great job. Thank you. Okay, we're on to our last item, which is item number 4, National Sign and Marketing representing Pilot Flying J for a sign program to establish sign criteria for the multi-tenanted fueling station located at 6605 North Indian Canyon Drive, and that is adjacent to Interstate 10. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, we do, Chair. Are you able to see the slide?
I can see your, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So as you mentioned, this is a sign program for the Pilot Travel Center, which services interstate travelers, trucks, and auto vehicles, and then also residents who live within the area. So what they're proposing, let me get this to advance. There we are. So here's an aerial photograph showing where the site is located. It's located at the corner of Indian Canyon and Garnet, and also along Interstate 10. So technically it has street frontage on 3 sides. And you'll notice that the vehicle passenger side is along Indian Canyon, and then the truck area is along the west end along the I-10 ramp there. So this intersection also has other fast food places, other service areas, and so it's a very auto-oriented center. And the signs reflect that that they're drawing the attention of the freeway passenger. So to go over some photographs of currently what's there, this is the site. You'll see that there's multiple signs on the building. Part of the renovation of the building was an approval by staff of the exterior of this building. The fuel island canopy will not be changed. That is proposed to stay as it appears, but the exterior of the building itself, which contains the convenience store where you pay, and then the Wendy's restaurant self-service with a drive-through makes this a multi-tenant building and requires them to come in and get a sign program. And remember, sign programs allow them to ask for deviations of the sign code, and that's what they're here to go ask for today, and I'll go over those requirements. So once again, this is looking at the front of the building. This will all be revised, but I wanted to just say that the pilot sign, the red pilot sign, will be moved. They're just going to reface it. So this size pilot sign will go over the front door, the front entry, and we'll see that in just a minute. So as I mentioned, there is a drive-through window for the Wendy's restaurant itself. So they're proposing a series of signs on the exterior of the building on 3 sides: the North Indian Canyon side, the south, which faces Garnett, and then signs that face the truck parking area. Go through these. So they're proposing this table is in your sign, your staff report. So the pilot sign is 42 square feet. That meets the code. Wendy's is 32. That meets the size, but it's more than one sign, which would require the sign program. PJ Fresh is their brand of food that they serve within the pilot travel center. Cinnabon is also has a little kiosk inside, and their sign will be on the exterior. And then they're proposing a food graphic, and the food graphic is a wall graphic that we consider as a sign, and they're proposing it to be 150 square feet. So it's larger than what would normally be approved. So along Garnett, a Wendy's sign, and then a sign facing the parking lot for Wendy's. They also have a monument sign that's at the corner of Garnett and Indian. And then they have a billboard Freeway sign that has Wendy's and then Pilot and then pricing for the gas station. So here's what they're proposing. The signage that faces the auto fuel station, the Wendy's, the Pilot sign, the PJ Fresh, the Cinnabon, and then the graphic, which is over on the right. As a close-up, part of the exterior of the building will be changed. And once again, this has been already approved by the planning department. There'll be a metal siding, which is the vertical. That's a bronze color, and then wood cedar Ipe material, which is at the doorway. There'll be a new canopy here with brackets that will, a new window above the front door. And then this area where the wall graphic will also be the Ipe with these gooseneck lights that will light it up. And then this is the side that faces the south, which is the drive-through window. Once again, the metal cladding, and then the Ipe wood material on the vertical element, and then the area that faces the drive-through. And this west-facing facade is a Wendy's sign, and then a welcome drivers. And there, you notice that there are several of these text signs that are not really signs, but yet they need to be included in an overall package. And then the Wendy's design, the PJ Fresh, and then the wall graphic. And then finally, we have the monument sign, which is existing. It's 24 feet tall, which is below what the maximum height is, which would be 25. So they're going to reface this and freshen it up, although it's not changing in height or design. So in a staff recommendation, we feel that this PJ Fresh sign is overly large. The applicant can describe the material, and also it's our understanding that this will remain for a year, and they may be able to change this out yearly to another graphic. It's an oversized proposed food graphic, and we recommend that it not be approved. However, the applicant may make a compelling argument that it's an important corporate need, and they can discuss that when they come on. So, Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Glenn. Does committee have questions of staff?
I do.
Robert?
Yeah, so can you, I got a little confused looking at the, let me just see what sheet number it is. It's page 3, which shows all the, well, actually, no, it's page 2, which shows the site plan with all the proposed signs. And I'm a little confused on sign number I, which is the southwest corner, and how that, is that a new sign or is that an existing sign? And how did that compare with the sign, the monument sign that's located at the corner of Indian and Garnett?
Ah, that's a good question. What is that I sign? I think it's like an entry sign. We'll have to ask the applicant.
Because I think in their sign program, let me just go to it. I thought that was another monument sign. Yeah, if you look at page 14, that sign is identified as I, and that looks like it's a new 24-foot high sign.
The applicant will have to clarify that because that would have to be approved by the planning commission.
Okay. And then the other question I have has to do with the remodel and some of the elements on the proposed remodel, and how the signs interact with that. So we can start with the big food sign. And you said the background is Ipe. Is that area that's Ipe, is that offset? Is it raised or is it offset? Do you know?
In looking at this graphic, it looks like it's offset because it extends beyond the wall of the building.
Okay. And then the added gooseneck lights are part of the proposed remodel that's been approved.
Right, that's not there now. Right now, there's a canopy with lights that just, they're like fluorescent lights.
And then going over to the Wendy's side, there's a 6-inch wide vertical band that transitions horizontally across the front. And is that just a raised plaster? Well, yeah. See it? Is that just a raised plaster element?
Here,
Yes.
we'd have to ask the applicant. I'm not sure what that is.
Okay. And all right. And I guess that, and then I can, just a quick question, because in the back of the building, is that truck fueling is there a canopy? If you look at the site plan, it looks like they may be fueling stations or scales or something or other, but you see right below C?
Those are the fuel islands.
Or the trucks?
Right, this is the canopy, and this is the fuel islands here.
Okay, thank you.
Glenn, as an extension of Robert's questions about the remodel, is the existing tiled mansard roofs being removed?
Yes, on the building itself.
Will they be removed from the canopy for the automobile fueling?
My understanding is that that is not in the plan.
Okay. So there you can see it. Looks kind of weird.
Yeah.
Other questions for staff? Thank you, Glenn. Will the applicant give us their name and their presentation of the project, please?
Good evening. My name is Steve Rosenblum. I'm with National Sign and Marketing Corporation. We are responsible for the signage on this project, and appreciate everyone's time this evening. And staff's presentation, I think they did just a great job. There was just the question that Mr. Rotman asked regarding the pylon sign. I'd like to address that first. I think that there was some confusion, it looks like, Glenn, that it is indeed a new sign. It's not it's not the existing sign. They're designed to look exactly the same, but you'll note on the plans it's identified as a new sign. And we were asked by staff originally, and this isn't Glenn, but to create two separate drawings, one for the existing signs and one for the new proposed signs. This is for the new proposed signs. Regarding the mural, you know, this is a travel center, and a lot of times you go into, you know, generally more of a gas station, and their food's terrible. They actually have good food here. I've eaten there before. And so they're just trying to convey, without asking for additional signage, that, hey, there's things you might actually like here. And because this isn't the truck stop where you know, walked in of yesteryear and you were a little concerned about walking in. There's actually nice places, and you know, you can actually grab a meal and enjoy yourself. So we're you know, trying to differentiate it. The building was designed for this, in that it's got exterior lighting. It's not designed to look like a sign. It's separated. It's something that's designed to be refreshed, being put on that snap frame system. And so hopefully you'll understand our goals, and that is just simply to provide a wall graphic mural type of environment. And I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Steve, I have a question. I don't really understand what this sign is, but I do know that on some of the billboards on I-10, they use a vinyl material for the graphic for the billboard. And frequently you'll see those things just flapping in the wind because there is so much wind out there. Is this a similar installation situation from what we would see on those graphics that are on billboards that are made of vinyl?
And I assume you're talking about the snap frame?
Yes.
Yeah. So just as a general, speaking to the snap frame, yes, it is. But just to a general rule, that is actually the absolute industry preferred material for high wind areas. The reason why we as an industry use, and the technical term for the brand name material is Panaflex. And the reason why we use stretch Panaflex is, well, several, but it is absolutely the best in wind. If you find, I mean, it can be any large sign. It's the best in wind. It's also the safest, especially when you're near a highway, because when you've got high wind situations, at least if that comes down, it's not going to injure someone. Now, it does need to be maintained. What can happen is the tensioning clips can wear out, and that's generally when you see a sign that's coming apart, is someone hasn't serviced the sign, and those tensioning clips have loosened up to a point where they're no longer functional.
I also worry that with this eastern exposure and the sun shining right on that vinyl after a couple of 120-degree days, it just seems like trouble waiting to happen.
I understand that completely. Branding is very important to our client, and quality. So as their general brand, they are very particular about maintaining their products. They require us to use all UV stable products, only the highest quality available. These are definitely, which I've grown up in the area. I'm in Rancho Mirage regularly, I'm in Palm Springs regularly. I'm familiar with the weather and the winds out there, and I've got to put my name behind this stuff, and I know that it is the best you can get.
Okay, other questions from committee members for the applicant? John.
Mr. Rosenblum, was any thought or consideration given to remodeling the fueling island canopy?
Not as far as our scope of work. We are only the sign contractors. I understand this process from a design point originally has gone through design from an architectural standpoint for the entire remodel. So I can't speak to this. This is just for the sign program that the city requested.
So you would not know, and it is not of issue here this evening, that there might be something planned that we don't know about?
That's correct. I would not know that.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Happy to answer.
Staff, committee, any other questions for the applicant? Robert?
Yeah, so on the west side of the building, you've got a sign called Welcome Truckers. But is there a door from that side of the building into the building?
And just for clarification, I just want to clarify for everyone's notice, it's actually Welcome Drivers, because it is caters to everyone, not just truckers.
Okay.
So as far as entrance on that side of the building, I'm blowing up the plans. I'm fairly certain it does have an entrance, but I don't know with certainty the answer to that question.
Yes, it does have an entrance. It has it from both sides.
Excellent. Thank you for answering.
Right. So there's a door here that goes into the pay area, the C store.
And that makes it, because that's the reason why they want that there, at the entrances.
And so that location of that canopy where the Welcome Drivers is, that is to the left or to the north of the fueling canopy. Is that right?
Yeah. Just take a look at my site plan.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Okay. That answered my question. Yeah. I guess that's all I have for the applicant. Thank you.
Any other committee questions for the applicant? Steve, just one question I have. The sign that says "Quality is our recipe," I assume that's just a tagline that Wendy's has?
That is correct. Wendy's is on, to my knowledge, they're undergoing a remodel program. They're trying to put this, as far as I know, on pretty much every restaurant. And they've done away with, as you can see, there's some other taglines that are currently on the building. They're doing away with that and focusing more on having a quality product.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions of the applicant? Steve, thank you very much.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, committee members, comments?
I actually have a question of staff, and that's process. So with the proposed changes that were happening between the Planning Commission and the Architectural Advisory Committee purview, if I recall correctly, AAC determines rules on signage. And is sign programs, does that still go to Planning Commission after us, or?
Right, yes, the sign program is a final action by the Planning Commission, but they rely on you to give them your expert advice on the content and size and if it's appropriate.
So then maybe we can bring the applicant back, because I'd like him to talk a little bit more about the proposed freeway sign or monument sign that's located at the southwest corner. Still there?
Most definitely. Are you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just didn't know if I didn't want to interrupt. I'm not sure exactly what what your goal is, questions, but I'm just going to kind of jump in and say the reason why we designed it there is when you exit the 10 going eastbound, what I experienced is a lot of truckers were starting to bypass the site when I was sitting outside watching. And I think that that's really important, because while they saw they were going the right place, we needed to identify that just as much as the Indian Canyon access that people are having. So what we did is we wanted to make sure we designed something that was complementary and design the sign to match what's out there for the existing sign that's already approved and just being cleaned up. So the goal is just simply to design something that communicates to the motoring public that it's right there and that they should take the turn appropriately.
Okay. So it's really meant to be visible from the 10, from the exit ramp, coming east. Is that right?
Well, from the exit ramp, but moreover, I think it's going to be, obviously Garnett Avenue as well. So you won't see it from the 10 at all.
You won't see it from the 10, but you'll see it from the exit ramp. Okay.
That's correct.
Right, so there's an eastbound ramp that isn't shown on this aerial that brings you to Garnett, and then you make a right turn. And remember, this ramp was added about 4 or 5 years ago. So even in this area, we can see that the trucks, it's sort of oriented for trucks to come off of Indian and turn in this way, not that way. So it wasn't, at the time, there was no need for this sign here because there was no access from the freeway.
Okay.
Exactly. And so our goal is, again, I saw trucks parked in the median. And so by providing that, we think it's really going to improve traffic flow. We think it will look nice because it's designed to match. It's, we want to convey all the right reasons for asking for a sign.
Okay, thank you very much. That helps.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I have a question for Glenn. Has the remodel or the refreshing of the architecture been completed on this project, or is that still proposed?
Well, it hasn't been constructed yet, but the review was done by the planning department several months ago. And the sign program.
Do we have the opportunity still to discuss with them removing the mansard from the gasoline canopy?
David, you want to answer that?
And I'm not saying as a requirement, but at least as a discussion.
Yeah, that's fine, Mr. Chair. You can provide comments relative to that, but it cannot be part of your action
Okay.
in terms of recommended requirement.
So could you put that in the minutes as a I don't know if it's a request that I'm making, that the mansard be removed from the canopy over the automobile gas pumps.
Yes. Yeah,
Thank you.
Mhm.
Discussion. John, is your head aching or are you raising your hand?
I would not want to give that impression. I think staff report nailed it to a large extent. But first, yes, from a big picture standpoint, I think that unfortunately, this effort causes a further disassociation between the canopy over the fuel pumping area and the building. And it seems as though effort and expense has gone to kind of deliver an upgrade and a refreshment of the building. And the caboose on the train ain't coming along. And it as an overall site improvement package kind of doesn't make some sense without looking at that. Secondly, I think that, as I said, staff report nailed it. I think that the real sort of, I wouldn't say egregious, but sign that is out of scale and kind of not complementary to the increase in sophistication that this building looks like it has is the 10 foot by 10 foot, 120 square foot.
10 foot by 15 foot.
Yeah, really. And it's, I think, Mr. Chairman, your comments on the critical pieces of maintenance that are necessary for that. I mean, one rip one day and it's, yeah, it could look bad if not kept up. And even then it's too big. It's kind of garish. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
Got a question. With the existing photographs, if you showing the corner, particularly where Wendy's is, they have got temporary signs up in the windows. How is that a calculation in signage and what we're looking at for future use?
Right, so the temporary signs in the window are not permitted. As you know, quick service restaurants always have specials and they try to add these types of graphics. So in the pictures of the existing, you'll see when these graphics in the windows, they're not a permitted sign. So it would be a code enforcement issue to go and tell them to remove them.
Well, interestingly, though, in the remodel, it looks like they've removed a lot of those windows at the corner.
Yeah, you're right.
They're only with 4 windows, sort of more toward the center of the building.
Okay, so underneath the quality is our recipe is still Wendy's windows.
I would assume so.
Both facades that have that tagline have windows below them.
Mhm.
Potentially have these temporary. So is there any stronger guidance that we can give the building owner on that to discourage the use of those?
Other comments?
What we could do is just note that your recommendation includes that no window signage be approved unless the full sign program is amended.
And of course, I can convey to them that this is a concern. We don't even do window signage, but I can certainly convey to them that probably that they need to talk to their marketing team.
Other comments?
I'll talk.
Robert?
Yeah, so I mean, as Member Walsh pointed out, I mean, the elephant in the room is the food graphic. The remodel looks like it's set up to have something large there. And my concern, although I think 150 square feet may be excessive, I think that without anything there, that whole panel is going to look, you know, like a mistake, an afterthought. So I think what we need to do is talk about what's an appropriate size for a sign there. If the committee thinks that that's appropriate, that, you know, a sign there is appropriate. But I think without having anything there is, you know, it's the remodel's been approved. It's already set up for a sign of some size there. So I think we really need to give some guidance if we're going to approve a food graphic there of what is appropriate.
I would just note that in the event that that sign is not approved, the underlying material would have to be installed at that location and those gooseneck lights would have to be removed. Or an alternative design would need to be proposed by the applicant.
Right.
Quick question. Is there a size of that sign that would be approved by planning?
Well, if it's under 50 square feet, that's normally
50.
right. And this is 100, so it's double the size of what normally would be allowed.
50.
Triple.
Yeah,
150.
Would it be more interesting if it were 2 or 3 smaller signs? So it had a little composition to it instead of just a big kind of billboard effect?
I mean, maybe that's the way to approach it, is with 2 50-foot signs. And that way, it potentially gives the owner flexibility to modify, you know, to change out one or the other or both as well.
Yeah, I like the flexibility that it gives them, and that it does give a little more interest. It's just like often a wall in your living room, two paintings next to each other are more effective than one big one.
But I would say overall, the rest of the signs I think are a very good improvement over what was there currently.
Yeah, I think they've taken a very pedestrian, mundane, dated building and made it much more sophisticated and interesting. And it's often tough to say that about a fueling station.
By the freeway.
I have one comment. I'm just wondering if the quality is our recipe, since it does relate to Wendy's, why it's not integrated with, like with the Wendy's sign itself being right underneath it in both cases, where it feels like it's just floating out there.
I think that's a great comment, Tom, because also it would make you know without question that it's referring to Wendy's if it's basically part of that Wendy's, a combination of signs.
Would it be okay if I chimed in on that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that comment.
Would it be okay if I chimed in on that?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so on that quality is our recipe sign, it's actually designed, you can kind of see the, in the drawings, it's got the tannish, brownish colored background. That's all tied into the Wendy's architecture, and it fills right in line with the building. So it's actually designed to fit in that band, is part of their standard. And again, while we're showing it in black and white because we're not installing it other than a sign, but it ties in with the banding on the building.
So it's actually part of the architectural facade.
That is correct.
Or trim. Okay. Thank you.
I don't think it's bad in its location, because assuming those are windows below looking into the restaurant, it does tie it in both cases on both elevations. So I don't have an issue with it being in the current proposed location.
Glenn, you made a comment when we discovered the second monument sign that would have to be approved by Planning Commission. Would that be an approval separate from this sign program that we're doing, since they're wanting to do two large monument signs on one site?
Right, no, it would be included in your recommendation, but what I was getting at is the location would need to be verified with the right-of-way and with our engineering department to make sure it was on their property. And then if there was any future road widening of Garnett there just needs to be some more investigation on our side. So you can make your recommendation regarding that pylon sign, and then we'll do the investigation before it goes to Planning Commission as to the location.
Thank you. Okay.
I just have one more question.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, on the pylon sign, where it indicates 10, it has kind of a design element there, and I didn't know if that is just a placeholder or actually part of the monument sign, where it has a little arch.
Right, that's the Wendy's sign. So if you look at the pictures that were in the pack and the staff report, you'll see that the Wendy's, and then there's a kind of a marquee that they can change the lettering out. And this picture, it says now hiring.
Okay. So part of the logo fits into that area.
Right.
So this second monument sign is the same dimensions as the existing monument sign, 24 feet, 1 inch tall.
That is correct. It's an exact match.
Okay.
Well, I don't see any benefit of the second monument sign. If a truck is coming down Garnett, even without the sign, the only thing they're going to see is the Pilot Fuel Center, the entire center. And they're going to see from the backside of the building, the Wendy's sign and the Pilot sign on the canopies. I think it's kind of redundant. And so I don't see a need for it. And the number of trucks coming that direction are probably a fraction of the number of trucks that come off of Indian because of the two off ramps there.
I would concur, and if there's really a direct need for signage to, so many truckers are missing it, then there could be another option. It's a little more smaller option.
Yeah, I actually would agree. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to a sign there, but it's not a freeway. It's not necessarily for freeway visibility. They're already off the freeway on the ramps. And so I don't think it necessarily needs to be 24 feet high. It could be, they could have a sign there, and I could see, because of the orientation of the existing sign at the corner of Garnett and Indian, that, it's not like right in your face, but I don't know that it needs to be 24 feet tall. I think you could have a sign at that corner of the property. But, maybe it's only 12 feet tall, or, something more truck scaled. So,
right. Or a pilot center. I think people would know that there's other amenities there rather than having to list every single option with pricing of gas.
And we certainly understand and respect those thoughts. I'd like to suggest that, at this site, remember when there's a truck parked there at the center median, it blocks what you can see. And that's the reason for the massing of the sign is you get a big rig parked there, you can't see anything. So you have to see it from a distance. And that's the goal with the sign, is to be able to see it, further back from that ramp and know it's there, because it disappears in the background otherwise.
Okay, I think our discussion is winding down. Is it time to consider a motion?
Do we have a summary of comments?
Right. So right now I have that that the recommendation be that there be no window signs. So any sign program would not include the graphics on the glass, the window, the glazing. Eliminate the second pylon sign, or you could recommend reducing it in height. And when they go to the planning commission, they revise their plans. And then I didn't think we had a consensus on the food graphic as to if there were going to be one or two, or eliminate the recommendation of eliminating it altogether.
Well, I agree that the architecture kind of says a sign needs to be there. I would like to suggest that it be two smaller signs of no more than 50 square feet each.
I do agree.
And preferably
So we could,
rectangular. Yeah, Tom?
so we could make a recommendation that they restudy the pylon sign and bring that back if we went ahead and approved this.
Yes.
Right. We wouldn't take it forward to the planning commission until we had all the signs together. So if you wanted to see the pylon, the second pylon sign, you would ask for a continuance or a restudy to have them provide it to you.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that this be continued and brought back to us with a reconsideration of the second pylon sign and a reconsideration showing us two smaller signs where the food sign is instead of the one large sign. I think the locations and numbers of the other signs are all appropriate. Do we have a
I
second?
would
for that?
second that.
Second by
I'll
Mr.
second.
Doshi. Okay, thank you, Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Can I ask one more question? Real
Sure.
quickly? So unfortunately, with the remodel, time is of the essence on this, and we're happy to revise this and get back in front of you very quickly. Is it possible, and I know a motion and a vote has taken place, could we potentially get approval for what you're okay with? Or maybe some suggestions so we can move things along more quickly and be able to allow them to move forward with this remodel?
Well, I think we're saying that everything on the building is okay, that the food sign location and the fact that it's sitting on that different material is okay. And because that's basically a temporary sign that could be installed at any time, I think the second pylon sign is a totally separate, independent project so that it could happen further down the road without slowing down the remodel of the building.
Understood. And I guess my confusion is because we were told in the beginning that we had to submit this sign program as part, and Glenn wasn't involved in this, but the sign program had to be done before permits could be issued. And so that's, just a bit of confusion on my part, maybe.
Well, that's something I'm going to defer to staff on.
Right. So Chair and Steve, so the next meeting is May 3rd. So that's 2 weeks away. So if we can get revised drawings in here, we can have it back on the agenda quickly. And then the Planning Commission meeting would be May 12th. So it would be
Let's do that.
just one right after the other. We can set that up.
Okay. And is there an appeal period after planning? Because that's putting us out probably potentially all the way into late June before we can actually install this stuff.
Right. Well, the renovation, I'm not sure where the permits are, and we can have this conversation tomorrow, Steve. I don't want to keep the AAC.
No problem. Understood.
But yeah, I don't know where you are in the building permit process, but you can submit for building permits for the renovation of the shopping center or the building. And then, of course, the signs could come after that. So we'll speak tomorrow.
Excellent. I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So that completes our agenda. Does anybody on the committee have any general comments or questions? I know that Mr. Newell has some information for us. David?
Yeah, so just really quickly, at your next meeting, May 3rd, we expect to, right now we've got a couple of cases, potentially a third, but we'll try and limit that meeting because we want to go over the architectural review process changes that we talked about before. The City Council has adopted at second reading the new architectural review ordinance changes. So those will go into effect 60 days from that meeting. So roughly June 8th is when we expect that ordinance to be in effect. So we want to make sure that everyone's aware of all the changes that are happening. Some of the things that we've looked at even tonight would end at the AAC. Sign programs now are approved at the AAC, which would actually be changed to the Architectural Review Committee, and you are no longer an advisory committee, and you will actually be a decision-making body. So you'll be deciding on sign programs that require deviations, such as the one that we just saw. So that will take place. Again, we'll go over it in more detail at the next meeting, just so that the whole committee is up to speed on all that. I didn't want to let you all know that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the committee for being here. We all appreciate everybody's time, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.